Is the economy finally turning around? Well, the Finance Minister certainly thinks so.
What is the recipe that leads to people feeling better off? It's low inflation, it's low interest rates, it's higher growth. Those are the three things we've been working very hard for as a government, and the Reserve Bank is certainly saying that's what they see ahead of New Zealand.
They certainly do. In their decision yesterday, they cut the official cash rate by 25 basis points down to 2.25%. It's expected to be the last in a succession of cuts. They do leave the door open, though, for a further one next year. It brings the rate to its lowest in 3 years. Paul Conway is the chief economist at the RBNZ, joins me now at the desk. Paul, good morning.
Good morning. Right.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
You're talking about growth for the coming year ahead and the year after that.
Yep.
What's driving that growth?
Essentially lower interest rates. It's a business cycle upswing driven by consumption from households, investment from businesses, because we've cut the official cash rate. We've cut it from 5.5% mid last year to 2.25 now. So that's a very significant easing in interest rates.
Paul, there'll be people watching this who'll go, yeah, but we've heard this all before. We've had rates cut and we haven't seen growth.
Yeah. I think, the recovery was happening end of 2024 into early 2025, essentially because we were cutting rates then as well. And that got derailed in the middle of this year, essentially because of tariffs and because of global economic policy uncertainty, which is kryptonite for businesses. So definitely in the middle of the year, the New Zealand economy fell into a bit of a hole. We think we're getting through that, and we think the economy is growing reasonably now, actually, in the December quarter of this year, and that'll keep going into next year. But, fingers crossed, things happen. Anything could happen. We can't sort of predict shocks. That's our best estimate of where we're headed.
I want to talk about the growth track and where we were in quarter two in a second, but just following on from that, what should a government be doing at a time like this then, when we're forecasting growth, but there's a lot going on in the world? What should their priority be?
I get in trouble if I comment on government policy. Let's talk about interest rates. I tend to talk about governments in general over the decades rather than the specific government at the moment. And I want to be very clear, what we're predicting now is a business cycle upswing. In terms of structural growth, New Zealand is structurally, we've had our challenges. Productivity growth has been weak for decades in this economy.
30 years we've had.
Well, yeah, exactly. And turning that around is a huge challenge for governments.
We will come to that too. So quarter two, you said, we kind of fell apart quarter two. And we reported at the time, it was backwards 0.9%. Actually, it wasn't that bad. Was it?
Well, the GDP data is a little bit messed up at the moment coming out of COVID, so there are what we call seasonal adjustment issues there, so there's a very high likelihood that negative 0.9 will get revised up a bit. We were forecasting negative 0.3 for the quarter, so it's still going to be negative. Let's not pretend it was fun or anything like that, but the negative 0.9 probably overstates the weakness.
What do you know roughly what it was? What it should have been?
Oh, I would. Well, no,
0.5, 0.4.
0.5, around there, negative 0.5.
Do you think there's a problem? Because there's the seasonality of there's issues with the numbers.
Yeah. And
we go out as the media and we say, we went back nearly 1%. And people go, oh, shoot, things are worse than I thought. And then it's a self-perpetuating cycle of people then close their wallets. And
Absolutely.
So how do we fix that?
Confidence, how people are feeling, is really important. And, a lot of that, I was talking about global economic policy uncertainty. People are being precautionary. We've come through a very challenging economic period out the back of COVID, and it doesn't take much for people to go, I'm just going to sort of, sit on that for a bit. There's been uncertainty in the labour market. Unemployment is up. So it's perfectly rational for businesses to kind of just hold back a bit, consumers, households to hold back a bit. And you're right, we can get into a situation where that sort of excessive precautionary behaviour keeps the economy a bit flatter than it needs to be. And in fact, we cut 50 basis points in October, and part of the idea with that cut was kind of to just help get people through that period of excessive precaution.
A confidence thing. Now, let's talk about the numbers. So for June, we're not quite sure what's being revised, but September you are picking a 0.4% growth, December 0.7% growth. What about next year?
Around that 0.7, 0.8. So that on an annual basis, that's around 2.5% growth. Which is reasonable.
What does that feel like? And what about on a per capita?
Better than this year, that's for sure. Per capita, it's not too bad because population growth isn't that strong at the moment, mainly because migration is weak. A lot of people leaving the country, because our labour market has been weak, especially compared to Australia's. So it will feel significantly different to what we've been through 2025.
Well, there will be a lot of people celebrating you saying those words this morning, Paul.
Touch.
One of the things you spoke about in the press conference yesterday was state sector productivity. And I like the sound of what you were talking about. Can you tell us what needs to happen?
Yeah, the thing about that, a journalist asked a question because administered prices that aren't determined by the market, they've been increasing very strongly this year, sort of circa 8-9%. It's a big chunk of the CPI basket.
This is levies and rates?
Yeah, university fees, rego for your car, and rates. Council rates have been a big part of that as well. And also electricity. There's a part of that is regulated by the Commerce Commission, and that's gone up quite a bit. And if you take that out, headline inflation, overall inflation is pretty much around our target of 2%, midpoint of our 1 to 3% target band.
Government fees are basically the cause of the inflation.
Well, you got to be careful with that. If you take everything that went up, you go, yay, we're at target. Our target is headline CPI. And the point I made yesterday, yes, the government has been constraining expenditures, so a lot of government departments don't have as much cash as they used to, and we are seeing government prices going up. But if we could increase productivity in the state sector, then that reduced budget, those constraints wouldn't necessarily lead to higher prices because we would be getting more for less thanks to higher productivity, which is the magic elixir for an economy.
And we've just seen Rachel Reeves, the British Chancellor, announcing their budget just last night. They've got the same problem. They've pulled back their growth forecast because productivity growth is low. Well, there basically is none. How do we solve that problem? And isn't AI meant to help solve this problem?
Yeah, I'm a techno-optimist. I think AI is incredible. I think it is going to transform economies. But I think we can be a little passive in New Zealand. As sort of things get done to us. You have to prepare for something like that. You need workers to have the right skills to adopt AI and adapt it to what they can use it for and what they can create value from. You need management within businesses. Successfully adopting a new technology like that is a huge challenge for a business. A business needs to turn itself inside out and reimagine every aspect of what it does given this new technology, and that's a big challenge. So we can't be passive about it. We can't just kind of sleepwalk into this thing. We have to be alive to it to make the most of it.
We need a strategy, don't we? We need like a proper strategy with some, an army behind it to actually make something like that happen.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
as you say, we will follow the rest of the world.
That's right. Well, the skills system needs to adapt and be providing skills that are valuable in the labour market. So you do need the whole kind of public sector and the private sector to come together, at least around a bit of a vision of what the future looks like.
Paul, great to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thank you, Ryan.
Paul Conway, Chief Economist at the Reserve Bank.